Hello, everyone. Welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled World of Enchantment with Catherine Edwards. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic. And of course, you can find Catherine at CatherineEdwardsAcademy.com and also at CatherineEdwards.life. And finally on her YouTube here at Catherine Edwards. Let's give her a big warm welcome. Catherine, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice. I always really look forward to our chats. I just feel like I'm just talking to a really good friend and discussing all the things that I'd love to discuss that I can't with lots of other people.
Right. I feel the same way. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Catherine. And I'm sure a lot of the audience feels the same way also. They just love being part of this community and having this conversation and feeling like they're not alone, because I think that's the big part in all of this. Depending on where you live in the world, you might be feeling alone. I, for example, live in a very government town, so I feel alone in my viewpoint. I'm overwhelmed by the other side, if you want to say it that way. So it does really feel good to be able to have these conversations with friends and family across the world like this on the internet. So I really appreciate that. So thank you everyone for joining us here on this live interactive show. We'll be taking your comments and questions as we go along here on the show. And also we are simulcasting here again from my channel here, Beyond Mystic, and also on Catherine Edwards' show. So depending on where you're watching, please consider going to the other channel and subscribing as well to see all the other amazing content that both Catherine and I are producing. Catherine, what a hell of a week it was last week, and just leading up to the news cycle in the last 24 hours, it appears we're going to have another hell of a week here moving forward. Where do you want to couch this episode today? Where do you want to start?
Well, it's so interesting. We say this every week, what a week, but there's been a few really dramatic things happening this week. Well, quite a few really dramatic things. So I think I'd love to talk about what's happening in the different areas across the world, because I know we've got beautiful people joining us from all sorts of areas, and we're all experiencing different areas of suppression at the moment. But also I'd love to have a chat about ways that we can really concentrate on what we can do and what we can control, because there's an awful lot of jitters at the moment and people going through a lot of different things. And I think it's really important that we concentrate on living our lives now, you know, trying to get that balance between keeping aware so that we can make the right decisions and sort of know what's coming and take the right action, but also not forgetting to enjoy our lives as we are now and our loved ones.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point. And just as we started the show here, a couple of comments. Lisa, bonjour, JC, and Catherine, still struggling, but sending love from the UK. Thank you so much, Lisa. And Greg also, he says, hey, is anybody else feeling super down today? Let's talk about that. And I know a lot of you are, and we're all getting bombarded, whether we're watching the mainstream news or not. And that's the issue. It still kind of percolates through the field. And those of us who are very sensitive do feel that energy. And of course, in the last couple of days, we've seen major lockdowns, major riots around the world. Everything seems to be escalating. So there is that fear going on. And of course, the machine is also pumping up as much fear as it can in order to maybe feed on it. So let's talk about, Catherine, maybe why you think some of the people here are feeling this energy in the last couple of days. What have you been picking up, either yourself internally or through some of the animals or through speaking to other guest speakers on your channel? What seems to be the main theme here of why people are feeling a little bit maybe long in the tooth right now?
I think there's a lot of feelings. It's very nerve-wracking when we feel that we haven't got control over our own lives. And most of us watching here are very used to sort of having the type of lifestyle before, because I sort of call it life before 2020, when we were unaware, a lot of us, of this was coming. And I think, you know, we were used to having quite a lot of self-empowerment in terms of taking decisions for what was important to us. Now, I've always been an advocate for the animals, and in my work that I've been doing for more years than I care to remember, one of my roles is to put forward the animals' perspective and how they don't have control over their lives, and us humans make lots of the decisions for them. So what I've really seen over the last week in particular is this real feeling of hopelessness from people, where they can see all these things and all this information coming that's almost bombarding them, and there's so little positive. And these aren't people that are necessarily watching the mainstream media, but even on all the Telegram channels, on the videos that they're watching, we're seeing all these supposedly horrific things happening along the world. And when I say supposedly, I don't mean that lightly. I just mean we're at a stage now where it's so difficult to believe what we see.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important that people really question everything they're seeing at the moment.
Right. It's the concept of observational dilemma. We are being manipulated at every corner. It's really fascinating. And at the same time, it's a struggle, because I was having this conversation with Penny Kelly last week, and we were just talking about that. Like, we need to really step back and reevaluate all the things that we think we know. And for some people on the show, they're like, oh, I can't stand this, I'm just going to turn away. I'm like, I understand that. And part of why that is, I believe, is because we're tired. We're tired of doing this. A lot of us who have been questioning what we thought we knew, we go through that grieving process of understanding that maybe what we knew is dead and that there's something else. And so we're all struggling to hang on to grasping our reality. And every time we do shows like this and we ask people to hold on, maybe that's not true, they're like, oh, JC, come on, I was barely grasping on that one, and you just pulled the rug out from under me again. God damn you, JC. I'm like, I know, I get it. It's hard. But at the same time, don't you want to make sure you're walking on solid planks moving forward? Isn't that what it's all about? And I know it's hard, and I know everybody's lying to us. But let's speak to that a little bit in your conversations and your experience too, how a lot of our friends and families are just barely hanging on to this new reality, and they're really tired, and they don't want to have to revisit again. It hurts too much, but at the same time, that is the order of the day. What can we say to them?
I think there's some really good points there. I mean, I did actually want to mention your Penny Kelly interview, because I shared that far and wide, because I thought that was phenomenal. And sometimes people like Penny and Kerry Cassidy and things get a little bit, and to some extent Cliff High, a rough deal of it, because they say the questions that deep down a lot of us are feeling. And when I was listening to your interview with Penny, this latest one, I didn't find it depressing at all, because there's a lot of the questions she raised are the ones that I've been raising. And you've mentioned it in virtually every interview that you said. And it's one of the things I like most about you, is that you're very willing to ask those questions and keep questioning. Because if we don't keep an open mind, this is how we get ourselves into trouble. Because not only is the information that we've got available at our fingertips to make those decisions with always changing, but the world around us is changing. So if you take nutrition, the challenges that we've got nutrition-wise for humans and for animals that we're facing today, most of those challenges didn't exist when I was a child, because we didn't have a lot of the contaminants, we didn't have a lot of the false fake foods, etc. So right. I think keeping your mind open and trying to somehow emotionally detach from making a quick judgment about something, and not shooting the messenger as well. There's been an awful lot of shooting the messenger, but we've got to have these challenging discussions, because we're moving away, whether we like it or not, we are moving away from putting people up on pedestals and having people save us, being our role models, etc. You keep saying it, but we are our own heroes. We are the only ones that can really change, because every single person in the chat here today, and I love seeing how many people on the chat, it just, you can feel all their energy coming through, can't you? Yeah. But every single one, we're facing some common challenges, but our own unique situations are very different. And having compassion for that, but also realizing that, you've got to choose your battles as well, haven't you? You have got to choose your battles and think, where is my energy now? And which things am I prepared to tackle at this moment?
Right. I think one of the things that some of the audience was struggling the most was this episode, or not the episode itself, but the conversation about revisiting maybe the meaning and the strategy behind Mr. T. Is that for them, they've locked themselves into this belief that there's this character that's going to come back into the play and fix everything. And I think that's where a lot of us are making that mistake. Although we love a lot of the things that he's done, and we're probably going to love a lot of the things that he's going to do moving forward, he's still just one of the characters. But we are the main characters in this play. And this is where I think we need to change that mindset and have those conversations. And again, focus, like what you just said at the beginning of the show, focus on the things that we control. So if we're waiting for this external character to come back on the scene and fix everything for us, then that suggests that we're not going to be taking those moves ourselves, right? And for a lot of people, again, and I get it, these are very frustrating times, and they've gone through this rude awakening probably in a much shorter time span than maybe you and I have. And so we need to be compassionate for them. And so for them, they're very fatigued to say, hey, on top of having this huge cognitive dissonance load, on top of that, you have to self-actualize and do everything yourself. They're like, hey, JC, give me a break here. I went from living in the nanny state watching the 6 o'clock news to now you're telling me I have to do all these things. That's a lot of work. And on top of that, I have a job. I have a husband and a wife. I have kids and I have a job, all these things. So I get it. I really get it. But again, that conversation with Penny was very interesting to me because reading the comments is where the money was. Most of the people really enjoyed having this conversation compared to the last time I had this conversation back in, I believe it was August or September. Yeah. And that one, oh my God, there was a lot of triggered people. And again, we were just saying, hey, we're having an adult conversation. These are all questions we can ask. We're not saying one way or another. We're just saying, hey, let's make sure we are not, again, being conned. Right? That's the whole thing. We keep getting conned. And now it could be that we are still partially in a big con. And so that's the big question. Where's your meter on that? When you look at this whole situation right now and how everything is being presented to us, are we still maybe struggling and supporting controlled opposition and in this paradigm that we're in? Or are we actually looking at maybe starting new programs? And I'll have a subsequent question for you on that. But where do you sit on that right now? What's your gut feeling telling you?
My gut feeling, and I'm going to be very unpopular saying this, is what I'm seeing in most people's actions so far is that the general level of consciousness is still very much what I would call in the victim mentality and still in the suffering mentality. And I completely get why, because the last 2 weeks have been absolutely hideous for virtually every parent on the planet. Now, it doesn't matter if we've got toddlers, children your age, or big children my age, but everyone is feeling this pain now they're hitting the children. And it's causing a lot of divide in families. So going back to, I know I'm answering the question in a roundabout way, but going back to picking your battles, I think it's still so overwhelming for most people that if you don't have someone to grasp, to hold on to as some sort of savior role, it can almost feel isolating, because I know more people that are trapped in families or households where you've got one partner on one side of the fence and one on another. And that is really exhausting. It's very exhausting. And I know what that feels like. You know, I'm a bit in that situation. And so, but what I'm trying to sort of try and live in my own life, because all we can do is really concentrate on what we do, is really focus on what we can do moving forward. And I have to keep reminding myself, because I've had some sort of challenges with various things coming up, you know, like everyone who's got a child going off to college or university, they're insisting on mandatory things for them. But you can say no, but people don't realize how they can say no. So it's this, we're faced in this weird dilemma, I think, where people still believe that they don't have a lot of choices. And yes, a lot of our liberties are being taken away, but a lot of those are self-imposed barriers. And I don't think people are still seeing it. I don't think a lot of people are putting enough time and effort into scrolling through and questioning the system and say, where is my get out of jail card for this? It's not possible in all areas. I mean, I'd love to hear from anyone in Australia, but, you know, in a lot of our areas, and I've had someone on the phone to me this afternoon saying, well, my daughter's going off to university and they've been told they've got to have it, so nothing to do. And I said, it is. Look on this website, look on the government website, look at the exemptions to the Green Pass and start looking. But it's this, I think because everyone is worn down, as you say, and they've got so many internal, immediate to home challenges, where do they find that energy to think, let me question this a bit further, let me see if there is a solution? And then I don't know how you're feeling. I'd love to know how you're feeling, because I'm finding it quite frustrating at times, because I'm getting so many people coming to me, but I'm exhausted because I've got my own things to do. And then I'm trying to point everyone in the right direction. And even though you're sharing it on videos and telegrams, that gets overwhelming for people. So I think we need to somehow go back to a bit more of simplicity and stop sharing so much stuff on whatever platform it is, which is scaremongering and not constructive, and concentrate on sharing the stuff that's constructive for people.
Yeah, that's the dilemma. And to answer your question, I'm struggling with that too, because I'm doing all of these shows, whether it's predictive linguistics or psychics. And for the most part, we understand that we're moving into this new world, and that things are going to be better, right? So that we're always close. It's like that carrot's just in front of us. But yet, when you turn on the mainstream media, even alternative media, we see all this advancement and this encroachment by this, call it the enemy class, right? So the FDA just approved one of the things today, which we were all like, wow, we were hanging on the fact that they were never actually approved, that they were only authorized for emergency use. And so now they seem to be gaining momentum. They're not going in the opposite direction as what we were being told. If we look at the situation in Afghanistan also, I mean, my heart just goes out to all the families who are stuck there and now have to pay out of pocket and kind of make their own way. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. I don't even know how to explain it. Apparently neither does the president, by the way. He keeps changing his tune every 2 days here. But I mean, where does this end? I mean, this is the thing. This is a crescendo of so many things happening at the same time that I get why some of the audience wants to just like, sorry, I got enough. I got to tune out. I can't look at more. I'm done with this. I can barely do the dishes, and make sure the kids are tucked in bed at night. I can't do any more, JC. I get it. I really get it. I don't know where it ends, though. I really don't. I'm still encouraged that we're on the same path. But going back on that question of the external savior, and I think why these conversations are important, having that external savior, the one most people are presuming is coming back, be in the forefront of humanity's consciousness right now, to me, I believe is detrimental. And let me explain why.
Yeah.
Again, please don't shoot the messenger. I believe it's detrimental. And I'm thinking out loud here, and I'm sharing this with you guys, and help me help you understand it. And please do participate in the chat too. But the point is this: if we're waiting for this person to come back to fix things, we're still living in the past structures. We're asking to fix past structures. And by necessity, we're moving into, if we're not already there, in the age of Aquarius. Some can depend also on the yugas and the cycles, but we're there now. We're at this era change. And so all of those structures that were built in the past era must crumble, simply because they were born out of those energies. And for us to move into these new energies, we need new structures. And so instead of focusing on fixing and hoping this guy returns and fixing the old structure, we have to think about, okay, what are the new structures we want? And that's the conversation I'd love to have. And that's the conversation I'd love to steer on this channel and bring guests to bring our heads together. The people who are still out here and can still struggle with some of this cognitive dissonance and the observational dilemma, to figure out, okay, like somebody said in the chat, what's next? Like, what do we build? What do we want? Because look, CNN, just to give you an example, last week or 2 weeks ago, it came out in their stats that they barely got 1 million views in a week, right? And so the three of us, between you, me, and Janine, we get that in a week already.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, the people have already demonstrated that CNN or that structure of news delivery is dead. It's null and void. We don't need it anymore. So what's new, right? So we voted with our consciousness to watch Catherine, to watch Janine, to watch Jean-Claude. So why don't we do the same thing with our governance structures? We're almost there now. And perhaps this is what's transpiring with the Afghanistan debacle. People are just realizing that the head of this institution is absolutely inconsequential at this point. They're asking people to pay $2,000 and make their own way. Like, what the hell is this government there with our taxpayer money if they can't even protect our citizens? Isn't that what they're supposed to do in the first place? So we have to shift that mindset. So what do we do here, Catherine, to change that mindset for a lot of people who are hoping just to fix the old as opposed to just creating the new? How do we make that switch and that narrative and that not a tactic, but not a gut feeling, but something in, how do we spark people into that frame of mind? Like, what's that catalyst? That's the word I'm looking for. What's the catalyst for us to do that? Is it the pain? Do we need to continue seeing all of this pain, or can we just short circuit that and do it without the pain? That's what I'm asking. I hope we can short circuit that, but how we do that, I'm not sure. I want to have these conversations.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this one because I've got so much to say on this and I really want to hear your views. So the first question about pain, I'm with Joe Dispenza. I've never bought into the fact that you need to go through that pain to experience it. I realize that as humans, we often do that. But again, you don't see other species do that. No species, other species apart from human, takes them to the point themselves to the point of destruction before they change. They pick up on those warning signs earlier. And for me, a lot of what you were just saying, I think the crux of it, and anyone in the spiritual world, we hear this, but I don't see it being put into action nearly enough, is about self-reflection and looking what we're doing and putting that in context. So take Mr. T. I've heard loads of people talking about, this concept that we mustn't keep looking for a savior. And yet they're still putting him on a pedestal. And as soon as one bit of something comes out about his past that they don't like, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. They throw everything away. But I don't think there's one person on this chat, certainly by the time you've got to my age, that hasn't got things in their past that they're not particularly proud of, because we learn a lot from our mistakes. And what personally I think we can all do literally from like this moment forward is take a really good look at ourselves and decisions we've made in the past, be forgiving for ourselves and think, well, there was a reason why we did that, from whatever lesson we needed to learn from that. And then apply that to some of these characters, because when we start, otherwise we're still doing what we've done with the whole of Hollywood, the whole of the pop industry, the sports stars. We're still putting them on a pedestal, just desperate to knock them off it, which is what we've done. We can't move forward with that attitude, and that attitude has to start with ourselves, I think. What do you think about that?
Oh, I totally agree with you. This is the change of ages. Our energy going to these false idols, that time is also over. We're going into the knowledge bearer. We are the knowledge bearer, so we have to go within. We are our own idols to look up to, whether you call it your higher self or source. But that's the whole plan and the beauty of the nature of this plan. And so I think by necessity, all of these past idols need fall. And they are already, and we're seeing that. But again, a lot of people are having trouble with that. They'll just see one fall and replace one with another and keep that externalization of their energy. And again, I think you and I talked about this on our first show. We're done with that. Looking outside for external validation is over. It's really the looking inside. And maybe that's also, it brings us into a new question. Why do people not do that? I think, and again, I'm thinking out loud and I'm answering your question live. I think people don't do that because as soon as they stop looking outside and start looking within, maybe, and I'm not being mean to the audience, maybe they don't like what they see, right? And that scares them. Maybe they've wronged somebody. Maybe they've made some mistakes. They're ashamed of it. So they're holding all of this energy, and the moment they stop looking outside and look in, they see that, oh, I don't want to sit with that. They shut that off and they start looking outwards again. And I get it. But again, here, this is what universe is showing us right now. It's giving us this energy so that we can deal with all of those past traumas and maybe mistakes and energies like guilt, shame, and all of these things, these distortions that we've all suffered because of the matrix of control that exists on this planet now. So if we can go through those first steps and then and be able to be comfortable and settled looking within, then the longer you can stay in that frame of mind and really, really connect to what it is you want and how you want to apply your energy towards this creation, the whole reason why you're here in the first place. That could be a whole show. And what you said about Joe Dispenza, I agree as well. I don't think we need to go through the pain. Like I always say it this way, universe doesn't care if it takes you 5 minutes to learn a lesson or 5,000 lifetimes. Universe will say, so be it, right? So if you need to tell yourself that you need to suffer to learn a lesson, universe will present you the opportunities and the life experiences to inculcate that goal of yours, right? You're a commander of your ship. And so if you say, no, actually, I'm done with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now let's move forward to the next mission. Universe will say, oh, okay, thank you. Here's the next set of experiences to help you on that way. If only people can realize that, man, how quickly do things change, right? That's where, again, these conversations are so important. And again, I want to bring it back to Mr. T. When people are thinking about the external savior coming back in to fix an old thing, that circumvents everything we just talked about you being the master of your own ship, fixing and maybe addressing some of the things that are in your energy field that no longer support your growth, and then changing that tune to what you want in terms of your future and your creational magic, if you want to call it that. It all ties in, and it's just very funny because for a lot of people, they're still, yeah, JC, I love what you're saying. That sounds really, really good. But Mr. Teacher is going to come back and is going to fix everything, and I'm going to be able to breathe again, right? That's what I get, and I get it. Again, it's been a hell of a year. Actually, it's been a hell of a few thousand years. We're a few thousand years into this spiritual war, and all of the starseeds watching these shows, the light workers, the light warriors watching these shows, they're all long in the tooth. I totally get it. But I think, Catherine, we're right there. We're just at that point like never before in the history of humanity. We were having this show again with Penny last week, and we talked about the fact that we're at that point now where consciousness, human consciousness, is about to hit a critical mass like never before in our history. The moment that happens, and the moment most of humanity, I'll say most because I don't know the percentage, has that one-track mind, we don't want this anymore, we want that, and we're working towards that, it's game over. And that's why all of this confusion. That's why we're seeing the rhetoric cranked up at every level on mainstream media and alternative news and all the infiltration we're seeing. So to slow down, I call it that, the singularity event or whatever it's going to be. So what are your thoughts on that? On how close we are to that global consciousness connecting and decided once and for all what we want for ourselves?
I think we are really, really close. I think we are very much at that tipping point, and that we are literally right at the top, and we're just about to plateau and sort of just come the fun bit coming down the ride. However, I think that every single person that's listening today that's on this conversation can affect those timelines really strongly, because we've still got to take the right actions on a day-to-day basis, because every time we slip back into a bad habit, you know, I had a really lovely health practitioner call me just before we came on live today, and one of her clients was insisting that she took a test before she treated her. And it's like, you cannot slip back into the easy way of doing it, because every little decision where we do that. So I do feel we're right there. I feel really positive and optimistic about the future. And I think that all of us on an individual level keeps coming back to, we've got to keep working on ourselves, because if we are put off course, which everyone's been trying to do by the insults, by the trolls, by the mainstream media, again, I don't know anyone who's probably on this conversation here today that hasn't got members of their own family or very close friends that aren't very, very challenged by what they're saying or what they're thinking. And a lot of them have been through some quite painful experiences over this last year, where they really have had to let go of friends, family, people that they're not on the same level at the moment. But you were saying earlier about, you've got to be really conscious about what your energy is and where you're putting it. Now, if you're a mother and you've got children on a different wavelength, that's one situation, because, you know, as a job as a parent, a mother or father, I shouldn't keep saying mother, sorry everyone, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for that, but you know, if you're a parent, you know, as parents, we make decisions for our children all through their lives, from them before they're conceived even. And so we make some good ones, we make some bad ones, and that's part of life. But if you've got friends or acquaintances or jobs and things, you have actually got the option to let go of them and move on. So yes, I feel we're really, really close. And I can almost see everyone I'm interacting with, even the people on the chat here. I'm only seeing some of the comments because my screen's so small, but there's a real shift in what I've seen over the last couple of weeks of people being so much more, we've got this. The old analogy where when you really make a decision to quit drinking, drugs, smoking, whatever your bad habit might be, the moment you burn your life raft and give yourself your all in, that's when the change happens instantaneously. So for me, it's been very easy because it's been absolutely non-negotiable. But for other people that perhaps haven't quite got that courage of conviction, it's more difficult. But once you go all in with that decision, I would say things start falling into place quite quickly.
Yeah, burning the life raft. I love that. I'm trying to remember which movie that was in, but
I can't remember.
I don't know. There was, yeah, what was it? Oh, at any rate, it doesn't matter for this show, but yeah, I understand the analogy, and I think for a lot of people, that life raft might be Mr. T, or that whole concept of that external savior, right? And again, it's not to say that we don't love the things that he stood for: free speech and return of rule of law, all these things, patriotism. Like, I agree with all of that. That's not what we're saying. So please don't be triggered if you're watching this. We're talking about the fact that we can't be trying to fix these old structures. They're on their way out by necessity, by design, by the very nature with which they were created. They are no longer supported in this new age that we're moving in. And so the faster, I believe, humans can put their minds around that, and the more flexible they can remain, they will be able to adapt to the new. If they're holding on so tight to those old structures, my bank account, my RSP, or my pension fund, or this or that, these people are going to have more difficulty going through this transition. And perhaps this is where we can have this conversation about those souls right now who are exiting, who might be choosing, whether they know it consciously or not. Again, and we're going to have to tread carefully on the language here, but who are choosing to leave now by one of the mechanisms that is out there and available to them. This could be part of that big transition we're living in now. And as sad as that is, because I have family members who may have made that choice already, depending on what was in those concoctions. And I'm going to feel that pain very much so, and that separation when and if it does occur. But I'm trying right now to consolidate my mind and my heart to these bigger concepts of them making a choice and us moving into a new era where perhaps their soul contract is limited by the previous era, if we could put it that way. So let's tread into that one, Catherine, a little bit, because here too, you talked about the fact that a lot of people here watching the show are having difficulties because maybe their husband, their wife, or whoever in their family has the opposite view that they have. But let's put that one step further here in terms of maybe family members, loved ones who are taking that decision to exit right now, whether it's conscious or not, and what that means for us as a collective in 6 months from now, in a year from now, how everything could be different if a lot of those people do exit at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think is close to every single person here who's listening to this home, and certainly it's very close to my home, your home. And I found this, this has been my biggest struggle and my biggest development over the last year. So I lost my father June last year, at the start of all this, and it was horrendous, not through anything to do with this full scenario, but the care he didn't receive at the end was hideous. But there was definitely a part of me that was really pleased that he didn't have to go through this and he could go and have a rest and stop looking after things, because my father was the most amazing person. and he took his responsibilities as a father very seriously, whether it's for his 2-legged children or his 4-legged children. And, you know, he'd been through a lot. He was a child in the war, living in London, lost lots of members of his family in the war. You know, he'd been through an awful lot. And I think, for me personally, I find it very, very difficult to step out of that wanting to save everyone. It's innate in my personality. I think as a holistic therapist, when you can see solutions so clearly, it's heart-wrenching when you can't get that across to others. But you've also got to realize, and I've had to really learn the hard way this year, is it's not my job, and actually it's not my business, you know, and to wait to be asked. And all my friends would tell me, you know, I'm very annoying. I can jump into offering solutions when they haven't been asked for. And again, I would separate it. I think there's always a depends in everything. So again, if you're a parent and you're having those conversations with your children, I think it's really important you have those conversations, still recognizing that they're their own individual. But whether it's friends, clients, grown-up families, whatever, I think it's really important that you tread that fine line between we mustn't impose our values on others. Each of our journey is individual. And I've really grasped that over the last few months, but it's taken me a long while because I just want to save everything and everyone, whether it's a slug on the lawn or another child. You know, I found it heart-wrenching over the last few months seeing how many of my children's friends have taken that decision. And it's so painful, but I equally find it heart-wrenching when I see people taking decisions for their pets or animals in their care that you know are going to have a very detrimental effect. But I think we all have to, it's so boring in a way, but it comes back to the fact that having that confidence, what I really love and have learned from Mr. T is I don't put him on a pedestal at all. Within reason, I don't care what he's done in his past. I do if he'd overstepped certain marks, and we all know what we're talking about. For me, everyone's got their own line about what's acceptable and what oversteps the mark for their own personal belief systems. And, you know, I don't care if he's used crude language to describe women in the past. It doesn't bother me because I can see that the bigger picture, you have to have a certain arrogance and strength of character to have done what he's done. And I could never, ever step into someone like his position. So that comes with certain personality traits. But equally, I think, I do think that in a lot of his actions, I'm starting to see the lesson that I personally was very slow to pick up on, that you cannot enforce your views on other people. It's ethically wrong, it's morally wrong, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work because everyone's got their own belief systems and they're exactly where they need to be at that point in time.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, because for me, that was the biggest learning curve when I kind of woke up too. I was like, oh my God, they lied to us about this. And I wanted to tell everybody, my friends, my family, and nobody wanted to hear it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to hear it? It's like, you need to know this. They're lying to you. And, you know, and for the longest time, I felt horrible because I'm like, well, I'm not doing my job. I'm not waking up my friends and families. And it took me a while. And Sarah was always like, GC, just, you know, you can share the information, but, you know, they really have to come at it their own way. Just like you woke up on your own. They kind of have to do the same thing. So I was like, okay, I get it for strangers, but for my family, for the longest time, I tried. I was like, it's my family. I want them to succeed. I want them to not be conned. I want them to, you know what I mean? So, and I thought I was doing well on that up until last year. And then, of course, this year happens. And again, I'm out here, I'm having all of these conversations, I'm doing all of this extra research, all of these things that are not said in the mainstream news. I shared that with my family. And so to see them make that decision, you know, to maybe exit with some of these products, I was just like, I thought again, I came back to, man, I'm a failure. I just failed them. I had to come back to, wait a second, hold on, Jean-Claude. This is not your soul contract, it's theirs, right? So you have to share the information, and the outcome of that is theirs to own, not yours. And so again, I was challenged again this year with that myself. And I hope that the audience watching this too, they can understand that Catherine and I sharing this is just like, we're just humans too, and we're doing our best too. And sometimes it's harder than some other, especially with some people who you really care about. It's hard to disconnect from that soul contract concept. And my heart goes out to you if you're struggling with that right now. I know it's hard for me as well. But just to go back, okay, so I want to address this. Sharon says he is absolutely the king. She's talking about Mr. T. And then there's another comment. I hope I didn't lose it off the screen. She said something like, oh, you guys are going to be surprised of your life when you realize who he is. Okay, so I don't see that next chat, but she wrote that somewhere in the chat here. What I want to say in that is like, yes, maybe, okay. But in the meantime, you guys are going to be surprised when you realize who you are and how much power you have. That's the question we really should be concentrating on. Mr. T, sure, okay, he's just another guy. You are going to be surprised when you realize how much power you truly have to create the world around you. That's, Sharon, that if I can answer your question, Sharon, that's what I would say there. Okay, going back to this idea of the exits, and that was a big question here, and we haven't really addressed it yet. We've addressed it into being detached from the outcome. But what do we say to the people here who maybe potentially, and again, if you look at Cliff High's data, the first time he ran the WebBot program was in the late 90s, and the sun disease came out. So you can imagine what's around the sun. It's all correlated to that. And he was forecasting their 1.2 billion exits. And he didn't ever know what it was all about until 20 years later when the sun disease actually manifested. And now we're looking at the potential and the percentage of the damaged from some of these things that are happening around the world right now and people are taking. So we'll just say it that way. So if that's the case, that we're looking at a 1.2 billion exit, how do we deal with that, the people who are still here now? And this is where I wanted to have the conversation. How do we start being in the mind frame now of maybe starting the grieving process, understanding the bigger concepts, and hitting the ground running into this new frequency, as opposed to when this all hits, if this all hits, this 1.2 million or billion exit, then being stuck for a year in this huge grief process? Right? How do we start grieving now and working through all of those steps now to understand these bigger concepts so that we don't get stuck in the mud when this happens, so that we can recover faster, I guess is what I'm hoping for. Can we do that? And how do we do that, Catherine?
It's such a good question. I mean, firstly, I would say, personally, I don't believe it's going to be those numbers. And the reason I'm saying that is because everything, the timelines are always shifting and the realities are always shifting. So in my soul, I 100% believe and know that there's so many remedies out there that have been hidden from us that are going to be accessible. So I think for a lot of the people, I think that there's going to be options that open up for them, but then we're going to be in the next stage of exactly a repeat of this. Do they choose to take that or not? Because some of them will be outside their normal way of thinking. Right. So I think that's one possibility. Secondly, we don't really know what's in all of these things. We don't. We might think, and I 100% believe that there's an evil agenda behind it. But equally, I don't believe they're that good at the rollout. So I think there are large numbers that are actually quite inert substances. But the problem is it's a complete lottery and we don't know who's got those, and nor do the people that's got it. Right. So those are two positives. But in terms of your question, I think it's such an important question. And funny enough, something that really hit home to me this weekend in a conversation that I had with a really good friend, I think we've already started that preparation. I think the preparation over the last year and a half of us all having the courage to stand up more and more and more for our convictions, and the fact that a lot of people have ridiculed us, walked away from us, etc. So I'm a biologist. All my biology friends, hardly any of them talk to me anymore because they all work for the pharmaceutical industries. Now, funny enough, they're all very happy to come to me if there's something wrong with their children or animals. Then I can, I know what I'm talking about. But as soon as I talk about this, it's almost hysterical. It's like I've got an invisibility quote, because it's like, if you don't acknowledge her, she doesn't exist. And I think we've all been going through a lot of this grieving process already by having to let go of parts of our ego, parts of our friendship, of bits of our old life that just no longer resonate with us. And it's a bit like, I would equate, when you have teenage children, there's a reason why they're meant to be difficult, because otherwise, as parents, you'd find it heart-wrenching when they left home. So there's a natural separation as you go through your teenage years, of a natural clash. Okay, it's different for everyone. But when you get to a stage where you realize it's in your child's best interest to let them go, and whether it's learning to drive, whether it's going to college, whether it's their first time when they stay overnight at friends and you've got no idea where they are at night, you have to let them take these steps. And what I think we've all been going through of this last year is we've been going through these painful steps of, as I say, the ridicule, letting the friends go, letting family members go, letting go of the fact what you and I have just been talking about, that actually we have to let them make their own decisions. Mm-hmm. It's good that we speak our truth, but we've got no control over who listens to that. And that's what I do like about these platforms, Jean-Claude, because, you know, people have said to me, well, you know, you say that, let people make their own life, but you're talking about it. But everyone who's on this call today is choosing to be here, and they can switch off at any time. Yeah. And so that's what I mean. I think everyone should have, you know, choose what they listen to. So I think it's going to be, in a way, a bit easier than we think, because we've gone through part of that grief cycle already.
I love it. And I have to agree with you. And I wasn't thinking about it that way. I realized that when you look at it, we've grieved so much loss already in the last 2 years, whether those are our freedoms, our friends, our way of life. Like, we've had to adjust so much already. So we might be, I agree with you, we are more ready now to deal with this loss if it does come. Now, in terms of the numbers, I'm with you on that one. I'm not sure it's going to be the 1.2 billion for many reasons. One, the numbers that come out of predictive linguistics are always iffy. Numbers are harder to predict, and even Clefai admits to this. But regardless of the way the data is collected, what you're saying is true also. We're seeing this across the world right now, where people who work for these companies are actively sabotaging the products. The people administrating are actively sabotaging the administration. So we don't know really what the extent of the damage is. We just know there's damage, and what that's going to look like, we don't know. Hopefully those numbers are way, way, way smaller. But then again, these are casualties of war. We are in this spiritual war that we find ourselves in. So it is to be expected, but of course, we hope that this number is smaller than bigger. And two, to your point about new remedies, we've been talking about this for years on channels like this, about the emergence of these technologies, these remedies, these cures that have been found maybe 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and we won't mention them here. And a lot of doctors have disappeared for even saying those cures exist over the last 10 years. We've saw, like, there's a huge list on one in particular. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So could you imagine some of these things now, all of them, as the truth about everything is coming up now? We're seeing it. You just just look at the news now, and you're seeing how ridiculous and how fast-paced the truth is coming out for everyone to see. It is very possible that we're going to hit that same type of fast acceleration in terms of our healthcare, and all of these things that have been suppressed could hit the forefront. And that's exciting to me too, because that means that we all have a shot, not just the people who are on death's door right now, who have these terminal illnesses, but even us younger people who are under or behind the 8 ball because of the food that we eat, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink. That's all been contaminated in one way or another in this full spectrum dominance system that's on the planet right now to kind of hold down our energies. We also get a shot at cranking up or maybe expanding our lifetime. So it's for that, I'm very excited as well. And if the audience here watching this show can focus on that, that's a positive thing. We can focus on making that a reality and making those things bubble up to the surface, whether the cabal or whatever you want to call them wants to or not. Human consciousness, and this is what Penny was saying the other day, when we hit that mark together and we all decide that's what we want, the universe will comply, and whoever doesn't want to will be outnumbered by a lot. So that's very exciting. Wow, Catherine, what an amazing show. We're already 50 minutes in. Okay, go ahead. You have something else you want to add?
I just want to add one thing to that, because I love the background picture you've got, your beautiful tree covered with moss. And I posted something, I think, a week ago about one of the Hopi prophecies. And I spoke to it about on my last week's show with Janine. And, you know, we've been out of balance in nature. Now, this is my pine needle essential oil. You know, there's so many simple things.
Bring it up a little bit higher for the audience.
Oh, well, pine needle essential oil by a lovely company in the UK. For anyone in the UK, Norfolk Essential Oils, gorgeous family-run company that pours so much love into their products. But, you know, whether it's herbs, essential oils, water, breathing exercises, cold showers, med beds, whatever level you want to go to, crystals, sage sticks, there's so much out there already. And what I think is just so beautiful is the fact that over the last year, we've seen a revival for the poor holistic practitioners and doctors and scientists that have survived. Most of them have had their careers ruined. You know, look at Judy Mikovich, Robert O. Young. I'm speaking on Thursday, everyone, to Dr. Andreas Kalka again about the CDS. You know, the people are really starting to open their eyes in a different way to these people. They're completely censored still. I haven't got it on there because I can't put it on YouTube, because even if I put a flyer up about speaking to him, they take it down. I learned that the hard way.
Imagine that, Catherine. Imagine that. Yeah.
It's horrendous, but people are interested now. And not only that, literally over the last month, Jean-Claude, I've had so many clients just say to me, oh my God, the miraculous difference in my animal or myself just by using CDS, or just by changing the diet, or just by doing that. So people are at a different consciousness, even if they don't realize it. And I think most of the people, and again, looking at some of the comments I can read in the chat, I think when you look at just the language that people are using and the positivity and the support they're giving each other, I've seen a huge shift over the last couple of months for the positive. So when things happen gradually, I can now see why it's taken as long as it has, because people adapt at different times, and you've got to make real behavior changes to make it last. And if you do it too quickly, you get all excited and then revert back to your old habits. And I don't think that's going to happen now. I think we have reached that tipping point where I do not think it's going to happen.
Me too. I'm also very optimistic about this, and I know it doesn't always look like that, and especially in the last couple of days, if you're paying attention to any type of news, it doesn't look like that. But again, when you go back and you listen to the comments, you read the comments on our videos, me too. Like, I've seen such a huge difference over this last, well, I just got deleted about a month ago. So I'm just now recreating this particular channel. And so I see a lot of familiar faces, but I see a lot of new faces as well. And I'm encouraged by what I see. I'm encouraged by the content. I'm encouraged by the people participating in our live meditation shows. It's just like, wow, okay, this is a completely new frequency again. And I could get why they maybe try to delete us or stop us. It's not just necessarily the content you and I are speaking orally, but it could be the gathering of all of these starseeds together and the amazing impact they have when they put their mind to something. And this is what the show does. This is what you do on your show, Catherine. And man, again, I'm so happy to have these conversations with you. It's an absolutely amazing and a beautiful time, and it flies. At every time you and I are, time flies. Absolutely. Okay, in the last 4 or 5 minutes we have in the show, you talked about the one episode that is not going to be here. So is that going to be on your BitChute channel? Yeah, that will be on my BitChute and on my website, the CatherineEdwards.live website. So I spoke to Dr. Andreas Kalka a couple of months ago, and he's, again, these people, he is so busy and he's donating so much of his time and energy just literally to put these healing messages out to all of us in the world. It's incredible. You know, whenever I speak to him, it's really late at night his time, because he makes the time to fit these things in, because he genuinely cares so much. So that will be on this channel and on my BitChute channel.
because, you know, at the moment we are still seeing all the censorship, but people are getting good at finding things now, and they're getting good at sharing things. So I think that'll be really useful, because I love what you've been doing, your live meditations and a lot of the guests you've been doing. Not only do you open up such challenging conversations and make us all keep this grey matter ticking over, but also you always provide such great practical solutions to people as well. You know, I've never heard one of your conversations where I've come off feeling down.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I work hard at that, but at the same time, sometimes you have to have some tough conversations.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so folks, if you want to follow some of these more challenge conversation that with Catherine and some of her guests, here's the BitChute channel. I'm just going to bring that down in the live chat, but they're also in the description box below her videos on her YouTube channel. So if you want that link and you're watching this on replay, you can find them there as well. Okay, so let's talk about some of your courses here and what offerings you have to the audience and how they can support you in doing this work, Catherine.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things I've been really trying to free up some time is to put these little courses together, because if there's one thing we've learned over the last year, it's about empowering ourselves. So I don't want people to have to come to me to find this information. Once they've done some of these courses, they're going to have them. So the cat picture and the dog picture there, these are my two latest ones with my amazing friend, Dr. Timo Tastahar. And these are dog and cat nutrition ones. And when you get the diet right for animals, so many of the problems go away. People are literally blown away. So they're very reasonably priced, and I will give you the codes today to get 10% off any of the courses on my site. So the code today is going to be Jean-Claude 10. No spaces.
No spaces?
Yeah.
Jean-Claude 10 like this. So I'm going to write this in the chat. Is this how? Jean-Claude 10?
Yeah, that's perfect, Jean-Claude. So I will put that on to all my courses. So I have got there courses about teaching you how to work with your animals with essential oils and herbs. I've got courses on nutrition. The ones with the essential oils and herbs are working with what we call self-selection, and it's really, really important because it's, again, having that communication channel over. So when you are working with remedies yourself, you should be tuning in and feeling, getting that feedback from yourself about whether they're suiting you or not. Tomorrow with my friend, vet friend, Dr. Timo, we're talking about pets immunity and vaccinations. And one of the things I'm doing for that show, Jean-Claude, and I'll put it on my website, is, you know, there's lots of protocols at the moment about how to detox from spike proteins and some of the nanoparticles. People like Kerry Cassidy, Decode, a lot of the doctors have put out some good, David Avocado Wolf. I'm doing a list of that about which ones people can and not safely use for their animals, because a lot of the problem, you can have too much of a good thing. Right. And some of these natural remedies are not safe for using in animals. You know, someone asked a question earlier about, can you put pine needle essential oil in a few drops of water and water and drink it? Absolutely, if it's a really good quality organic one. But you would never do that to your animal, because you can taste it and choose to get a fresh glass of water if you don't like it. That might be the only bowl of water your animal's got access to. So I cover all things like that. So please do take a look at those, and I'm very open for suggestions. I'm adding those courses, and that's what I'm really concentrating on, is providing the information so people can have the information and then they can take what resonates for them.
Oh, very good. That's excellent. And these are all new territories for us, and we have to learn. So we have to take the time to do it right. Yeah. There are natural remedies, as you say. Sometimes a good thing, too much of a good thing, is not good for you. So I appreciate that. Okay, Allison says, oh, and Catherine, before we end the show, I wanted to come back to one of the last videos from the Health Ranger. I do want to just put that on the radar for the audience to understand that something might be coming up and how to maybe hold their frequencies. So we're going to end on that. But first, Allison is asking, GC, I didn't realize you had a meditation group. I don't have a meditation group per se, but I do have a lot of shows where we do live meditations. One that's coming up for sure, which you guys are absolutely going to love, a returning guest on the show, is May Levy. She's absolutely amazing, folks. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes where she joined us on the Quantum Woo a series with Mariam Hanin, she is now coming back for her own series here on the Beyond Mystic channel. So this is going to be absolutely amazing. So do please come and check that out. And of course, for all you Tarot by Janine fans, Janine is coming back, of course, on Wednesday night, every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. So do come and check that one out as well. And this galactic download, with Indigo Angels, we often do live meditations on those shows as well, and we target specific areas of the world or specific subjects together. So that's to answer Allison. So thank you, Allison, for prompting me on that. Now, okay, before we leave here, maybe just set this up very carefully, maybe using the word FF for now for people to understand what we're talking about. So set up what you understood to be the last maybe radar ping from the Health Ranger, and then we'll talk about maybe how to hold our frequency through these particular events.
Perfect. So we were just talking just before we came on here. It's been sort of quite all over Telegram today, but the Health Ranger, who is obviously very, very knowledgeable and comes out with such amazing stuff, has put out some information that he's had very good intelligence that there is an upcoming FF, and I think most people here will know what that means, the things you wave about to support people, and that they will be blaming it on people that do not want to do this, and that people that have certain things to protect themselves, which we can't have in the UK anyway. So I think it's very important to use discernment. Everyone has been talking about this, about using discernment when you're going to freedom rallies, freedom marches, when you're going to events, etc., to really use discernment and follow your intuition about whether that's the right place for you to be. Not that you want to put anyone off going to these, but it's important everyone as an individual tunes in and just listens to what their intuition is telling them. And then also that when you do go there, you're very conscious of not being drawn into an agenda that's being set up. So there was an event that happened in America at the beginning of the year, which was blatantly a setup, and we don't want people being drawn into events that are set up and are going to have the opposite effect of what they've been gone there to do.
Okay, sorry, my dog is going ballistic because I can think the mailman is here. So we have a temporary reprieve. Okay, yeah, I absolutely agree with you, folks. And so, again, we had this warning on our show a couple of times already in the last month. Just be very careful what activities you engage yourselves in. And we don't want to feed in to this evil class so that they can permit themselves to institute even more measures to maybe force people to do, well, the two cadres you just mentioned there, to do things they don't want to do, and again, encroach on our freedom. So that's very important. And also on the energy front, meditate, go outside. Hug that tree, go outside in the water, really pay attention to those frequencies, hold your heart frequencies. None of this will pass, and it's really high right now. I get that it's all cranked up, but it will pass, and it'll be easier on each and every one of us if we can stay centered and hold in that energy of what we want to create here on this planet, and we're not giving in to all of these programs that might again con us into getting us into another box, which we don't want. So we've got enough of the boxes. We want to come out of these boxes that officialdom has placed upon us. And that's the beauty of this age of Aquarius, the knowledge bearer. Once you have the knowledge, you can no longer be placed in the box. All right. Folks, that was The World of Enchantment with Catherine Edwards, Part 2. Join us again in 2 weeks from now, where we will be broadcasting first from Catherine Edwards' station and simulcasting on this one. So Catherine will be at the controls of our next show. She'll be testing out her new skills on StreamYard and putting all of this together for you guys. So Catherine and I, just after the show here, will just confirm the date, but it should be 2 weeks from basically today. And we're going to hope to keep that same time slot moving forward, as we just absolutely enjoy having these amazing conversations with you guys. Any last words, Catherine, before we go?
No, just thank you, everyone who's joined us tonight. It really does make a difference. I know you always say, Jean-Claude, the energy of the live shows are so special, and they really are. So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, because, you know, I do enjoy it so much. And we all do go through these ups and downs. And I find it really, really positive just to say, not being afraid to talk about the negatives, but not staying there in that place. So thank you all for joining us. It's been lovely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Catherine. And thank you, everyone. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe on your way out here if you're not already a subscriber of Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic 3, our third backup channel here. And we are now regrowing that community at 20,000 or 23,800 strong and growing. Thank you, everyone. And also, please remember to go, if you're watching on Jean-Claude's channel, please remember to go and subscribe to Catherine here. Hey, very close at 23,500. Hey, we're neck and neck.
My second channel as well. It's taken a while to build it up because, yeah, obviously I got deleted at the same time. So, yeah, very close. So, yeah, thank you for your support, everyone. We really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you again. Oh, and what I want to say for you guys also, in about an hour now from now, Janine and Michael Jaco and I are recording episode 5 of Disclosure and the SSP. So that will be available on our pay-per-view site later on this evening. So if you guys are a fan of that one, check it out. It's going to be one hell of an episode. All right, folks. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic. I love you guys. Have a great day, and au revoir.
Bye.